Alright, hey guys. I've noticed a lot of you have struggled with the 6.02 assignment, the ASAD model, and it is kind of difficult. So I just wanted to make a video and kind of explain some things and go over some of the questions. I've updated the chart that is in the lesson. You know what I'm talking about? These charts here for aggregate demand and aggregate supply. There are a couple of things in those charts that that were not in those charts that I feel like could have helped you answer some of the questions. So I made an updated one and it is right here before the lesson. Okay, things you need to know. Aggregate demand and aggregate supply, both of them, if they increase, then the curve shifts to the right. If they decrease, the curve shifts to the left. That's the same for demand and same for supply. As you see over here, supply increase shifts to the right, decrease shifts to the left. And there are many different things that cause those shifts. If you look at these charts, consumer spending, household wealth, taxes, interest rates, expectations for the future, investment spending, government spending. This government spending has to do with infrastructure. Anything where government spending has to do with infrastructure applies to demand. Now, government spending that applies for businesses would apply to supply. And then, of course, exports and imports. Same thing for supply over here. Cost of inputs, government spending, environmental changes, technology, education. I also threw in here immigration because that's one of the questions has to do with immigration. But to be honest, it doesn't really help you in the chart figure out which one it should be. And it is applying to supply. So I added immigration into the new chart. And I can pull that up for you guys if you would rather take a look at it. There's your aggregate demand and aggregate supply. And I just added immigration to the bottom of it. And I put government regulations in here under government policies. Okay, now as far as equilibrium goes, and really the only thing you need to know about this is this LARS curve right here. And here's something really easy to help you. If the supply or demand curve, when it changes, moves to the right of the LARS curve, then is going to be inflationary. If it moves to the left, it's going to be recessionary. Because that is part of your assignment. You have to choose the recessionary or inflationary. If it moves to the right, it's inflation. Left is recession. That's kind of like inflation's kind of going forward, recession's going backwards. So if you move to the right, you're moving up, you're going forward. So you're inflation. If you move to the left, you're going backwards. So it's recession. A couple other things about aggregate demand, and we'll kind of type this up for you in some notes also. But if aggregate demand increases, let's go back and look at aggregate demand. If aggregate demand increases, your price level and your output are both going to increase. Okay? If aggregate demand decreases, your price level and your output are both going to decrease. Okay, let's say you have price level right here, and here's your output. If you go over here, now your new price level is going to be up here somewhere. Okay? So increase in demand, price level, output increase, decrease in demand, price level, and output decrease. Now, supply is different. If there's an increase in supply, your output is going to increase, okay? And an easy way to think about that is the supply is more, you're making more, so producers are putting out more goods. So supply increases, output increases, and the price level decreases, okay? And this just goes back to regular supply and demand like we talked about, okay? Supply increases, producers are putting out more, so their output is going to increase. And if there's more product out there, it's going to cost less money, so your price level is going to decrease. On the other hand, if there's a decrease in aggregate supply, then producers are putting out less, so your output is going to decrease. And if there's less goods on the market, they're going to be more expensive, so that price level is going to increase. So let's type some things up. I know sometimes, let's do purple. Sometimes it's easier if I see some things, just kind of out here. So aggregate supply and demand. Okay, aggregate demand. Increase shifts to the right. Decrease shifts to the left. And I hate when they do this. Aggregates. That's not spelled correctly, but you know what I mean. Aggregate supply. I need this to be out here. There we go. Increase shifts to the right. Decrease shifts to the left. I don't know why. This is really probably showing my computer skills and how they aren't very good. Okay, and let's add some things in here. The increase, price, level, and output increase. So they do whatever the curve does. And output decrease. Aggregate supply. Output increases and your price level decreases. So output does whatever the curve does, price level does the opposite. So there you go. Aggregate demand. An increase shifts the curve to the right and also increases the price level and output. A decrease shifts the curve to the left and also decreases the price level and the output. With supply, an increase shifts the curve to the right, the output increases and the price level decreases. A decrease shifts the curve to the left and your output decreases and your price level increases. So let's do some of these triad activities. And we'll see if we can figure out. And some of these you can figure out because what it says the curve shifts to. They're opposites. So let's see. Household income throughout the economy decreases. Okay, let's pull up this little chart. Okay, if household income, household wealth, okay, if it decreases, your AD curve is going to shift to the left. So shifts to the left because of income. All of that's going to decrease. So that is the correct answer. Okay, businesses see an increase in wages and raw materials. Okay, this doesn't have to do with supply because it's businesses. Okay, and this doesn't have to do with cost of inputs. Okay, because now they're having to pay more for their employees, their labor. They have to pay more for the resources they're using. So the cost of that increases. So the supply curve is going to shift to the left. And then what's going to happen? If it shifts to the left, if it decreases, remember your output, your quantity is also going to decrease. These are both the same. Okay, these both say exactly the same thing. Your price level is going to increase and the employment is going to decrease. Incorrect, the answer is A. They both say the same thing. Shout out to Access for doing that. All right, in an effort to jumpstart the economy, the federal government reduces the corporate tax rate. Okay, so this is a tax rate on businesses. So it's going to affect the supply curve. Okay, so they reduce the corporate tax. Okay, they reduced government regulations. They decrease it. So the supply curve is going to shift to the right. And your quantity is going to increase and your price level is going to decrease. We'll do a couple more of these. And we'll kind of look at some of the questions on your worksheet. Okay, households increase their savings. So the interest rate falls. Households increase their savings, so the interest rate falls. That's going to be with demand because it's got to do with household. The interest rate decreases, AD is going to shift to the right. And what's going to happen if it shifts to the right? Remember, with demand, when there's an increase and it shifts to the right, everything else is going to increase as well. Okay, voice control software is adopted by businesses. Okay, so this is going to have to do with supply because it's talking about businesses. This is an advance in technology. If there's an advance in technology, there's an increase, the supply curve is going to shift to the right. Your quantity increases, your price level decreases. Okay, a chemical used to increase yields of crops is banned after it is discovered the chemical causes cancer. Okay, so this is going to have to do with business, and this is going to be a government regulation. Okay, government regulation is now increased because now we've got to find another crop that's doing the same things as this crop did, only not causing cancer. So your government regulation increases, your supply curve will shift to the left. One more. The government increases the subsidies to all transportation-oriented businesses. So this has to do with businesses, and subsidies are government spending. That's money given to businesses by the government. So government spending has increased. The supply curve is going to shift to the right. And then what's going to happen? Your quantity is going to increase because businesses are putting out more. Okay, let's look at your worksheet. And let's kind of go over. We'll do probably the first three together. I'll give you that one, especially this first one. It's a little difficult. Okay, the government increases spending sharply on infrastructure. Okay, government spending in regards to infrastructure has to do with the demand curve. Okay, so government spending with demand, if the government spending increases, which is what is happening, AD will shift to the right. Okay, if AD shifts to the right, there's an increase. Remember what happens to both price level and output? They both increase. Okay. Now, if we look at the curve, let's talk about this. Remember, we said if it's to the right of the LRAS, it's inflationary. To the left, it's recessionary. Okay, if you take this demand curve and you move it to the right, or you move it up, increase AD to the right, now it's going to be here, and that point of equilibrium is going to be on the right side of the LRAS. So it's going to be inflationary. I should make this red. Okay, American goods increase in demand from foreign buyers. Okay, so this has to do with demand because it's talking about it there. Okay, and foreign countries, foreign buyers want more American goods. So that means that they want more American exports. Okay, so let's look here. Exports increase. That's going to cause AD to shift to the right. So what happens if AD shifts to the right? PL increases, output increases. AD shifts to the right, once again, your new price level is going to be on the right side of LRAS, and it's going to be inflationary. Okay, we'll do number 3. Immigration into the country increases dramatically. That's got to do with supply. There's more people now. Okay, immigration increases, so there's more people in our country that want different things. Okay, so consumers are going to have to supply more stuff. Okay, so the AS is going to shift to the right. It's going to have to increase. Whoops, sorry. Okay, now let's look back over here. What happens if AS shifts to the right? The output increases and the price level decreases. So price level decreases, output increases. Okay, now if AS moves to the right, we move down here, Okay, our price level is on the right side of the LRAS, so it's going to be inflationary also. Okay, I hope this made sense to you guys. I hope this helped explain some things. If you still have questions, just email me. Your test, I don't believe, is due until next Friday. Let's look. I guess I could just stay and look in this module. Yes, your test is due next Friday. So I can come and meet with you sometime at the school next week if you need me to. All right?